You are listening to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, a podcast released on the first 3 Wednesdays of the month. Family crisis, relationship crisis, addiction crisis, no two crisis situations are the same. They vary by family, individual, and relationship. They can encompass complex family dynamics, emotional distress, anger issues, and entitlements, and often involve substance abuse. This podcast addresses these issues and others surrounding the addiction epidemic currently plaguing this country and the world. There is hope and help.
Are you stuck, scared, or unsure of what to do next? If a situation with a loved one, spouse, or even a child has started to spiral, possibly becoming dangerous or threatening, it's time to seek help. My name is Scott H. Silverman. I help families navigate crisis situations. I'm the person you turn to in order to get you and your loved ones unstuck.
Welcome back to the show. This is Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. I'm Michael Glenn Moore, Scott's co-host. Well, Scott, this is our second try on this episode. Apparently, I'm having a little bit of computer problems, so hopefully we won't have any problems in the middle of the show. If we get a long pause and the listener's trying to figure out what's going on, it's just my computer messing up. So hopefully it'll pick up right after the pause and where Scott left off or Jay or whatever. But anyway, so we're back. So Scott, how is it going?
It's going good, Michael. And you know, if you've got one of those computers, and I had one in my past where you have to pedal to make it work, sometimes it's good to use both your feet and move as quickly as you can.
Indeed, yes.
and it's hard to do because you don't want people to think you're riding a bike while you're sitting in the same place. So technical difficulties happen all the time. And I always appreciate all the work that you put into the show and the post-production and the distribution. So thank you, Michael, for your big commitment. So today, you know, we're going to bring back one of our old VIPs, and he's more of a VIP now than he was then because now he has a track record that we can actually measure, and he's going to tell you all about that. So anyway, welcome to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. I'm Scott H. Silverman, and you can always reach me at 619-993-2738. You know, I give that number out every single time we record. And sometimes people hesitate to call, and it doesn't matter where you are on the planet. Call or text me anytime. I just got a call from a guy in Philadelphia, and he said, I heard you on a radio show and you said to call you, and I wanted to call you. We had a nice conversation. So that's what I'm here for. That's what Jay's here for. And that's what Michael's here for, is we want to get the word out that there is hope and there is help. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. So our guest today is a guy named Jay Wylie. And Jay is, you know, pretty much the guy that runs Confidential Recovery now. He has pretty much done everything one needs to do to make everything we can successful, and bump into every wall that he can and fill each crack as it's come up. And he's been real busy helping us get some really cool things going on in the last couple of months that, you know, he may touch on, he may not. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Jay. So for those who may not know you, just a quick snapshot of who you are, why you're doing this, and then we'll kind of get into some conversation about all the exciting things that have happened in the last, let's say, 12 months at Confidential Recovery with you and your stewardship and your leadership. Take it away.
Well, thank you. That's quite an introduction. You know, my first rebuttal is even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again. So I'm Jay Wylie, as you said. My background is that for many, many years, I was a fairly senior naval officer. In fact, my last gig in the Navy was I was the commanding officer of a guided missile destroyer. And I felt like that was the route my life was supposed to take. You know, I was very service oriented, but, you know, in that particular vein, it was the service to country, service to my service, and in particular to my shipmates, my crew members. And I took it very, very seriously. And it's a serious line of work. There's a lot going on in the world today. I have to say, I'm happy that I'm not on active duty anymore these days for a number of reasons. But you know, one of the biggest things, and I'll kind of tie this into what we're talking about, is that was a very difficult lifestyle for me, and it is for all of our servicemen and women. And you know, we're asking our servicemen and women to do an awful lot. You know, we're asking them to be able to conduct, or rather, really to deter a strategic nuclear conflict We're also asked them to be ready to do a full-scale conventional war, to fight insurgencies, to fight smaller regional conflicts at the same time, to conduct counter-piracy, counter-narcotics, to be a disaster relief force around the world, and to respond to civil unrest at home, and to do all of this without having any accidents, without causing any collateral damage, without inadvertently killing any civilians or getting killed ourselves, and do that all while being politically correct, and having the right social engineering, and being environmental stewards. It's a pretty impossible task. And the reason I mention this is because a big part of my story is trying to deal with all that. I couldn't cope. I couldn't figure it out. And a lot of our service members, and especially veterans, are having the exact same problems. They're not able to cope with all that stress, that perfectionism that's being demanded from all quarters. And my response was, I drank, and I drank an awful lot. I drank as hard and as fast as I could anytime I could, because I just wanted to make those fears and those feelings, fear of failure, and feeling inadequate, feeling not up to the task. I wanted to make that go away. And the only way I figured out how to do that in a time efficient manner, and in a manner where I wasn't going to lose my security clearance, was to drink myself stupid. And unfortunately, that caught up with me.
Jay,
So I want, yeah.
Is drink available on the boat, on the ship?
So it's really not. You can't, in the American Navy, we don't have alcohol, but what we do have is port visits. And so when we pulled into port, I made up for lost time. And so I never was in trouble out at sea. Out at sea, I was miserable, but I was sober. The problem is, when you pull into port, bad things happen. And we're seeing that more and more and more. There's more and more what we call liberty incidents, where, sailors are pulling into a foreign port. They haven't had any drink for weeks and weeks and weeks, or months and months and months. And then they go completely bananas when they can get a hold of this stuff. And then they're getting in trouble because, A, we're co-ed, B, we're in foreign countries where they may not appreciate that type of behavior, and it can get really ugly. And that was really my story. So I ended up having to leave the Navy rather unceremoniously and rapidly, in a very painful fashion. But it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, because that's what it took to get me sober. So I was able to go through the Navy's substance abuse rehabilitation program. It was a 28-day outpatient program that introduced me into the 12-step world. And, now I've been sober a little over 10 years, going up, actually get close to 11. And I found a new purpose. After I was done with the Navy, I thought that was my purpose. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And poof, overnight, that went away. And so now I had to figure out, what am I going to do when I grow up? And I just recognized all the people that I was going through recovery with, fellow service members, and then, fellow veterans. And it was such an uphill climb for them. So if I was able to put my hand out and help them on that path, that's exactly what I was going to do. And then, I met Scott in recovery, and Scott had a passion for first responders. And somebody at some point along the line whispered in Scott's ear, "Hey, Scott, in San Diego, over 30% of first responders are veterans." And that's when the two of us clicked. He knew my story. He asked me to come on board at Confidential Recovery and help him get connected with the VA, because I am relatively fluent in veteran. So I was able to make that connection. And, at the deck plate level with the veterans, Scott had already done a great job of getting connected at the procedural level, the legal levels, and the rest is history. So now we're connected with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we're able to provide support to veterans. And Confidential Recovery, we've managed to grow. We've added quite a few numbers of staff members. And the really beautiful thing is, well over 50% of our staff are veterans. A very high percentage of our staff is in recovery themselves. So, we're providing not only some help with substance use disorder, but also peer support. We've been there, we've done that. We understand what it feels like, what it looks like, and we're able to, give some hope. And that's exactly what we've been doing over the past year. So, we started as a program at the very early days of the pandemic, where we had 4 or 5 clients, and now we've been able to help, a census as high as 40, and the vast majority, I would say, probably 90% of them have been veterans, and that's been a really really beautiful journey. And now we've created what is referred to as a very safe space. So when we talk to veterans and they come into our rooms, and I've heard a veteran, a Marine Corps veteran, F-4 Phantom backseater from the Cold War era. I heard this guy say after 3 sessions that this place has changed his life. And the reason was simply because it was a safe space. He could finally open up and lay his burden down in front of other veterans and people who were like, yeah, I felt that way too. And then, he felt normal again. And it was like, okay, well, if you guys have figured this out, maybe you can help me figure it out. And that's really the beauty of our program is it's a safe place. And both our staff members and our veterans are pretty open about saying, I really like it here. And you don't hear that in a lot of recovery programs. So it's a good progress.
Let me ask you something real quick, Scott. Scott, I'm sorry, I'm breaking in here. But Jay, is the veterans to receive help other than like the anonymous groups? Is it free for them, or is that something that your organization provides veterans the funds to go into rehab, or is it something that the VA has for veterans, the rehab aspect?
So it's primarily through the Veterans Administration. So every veteran is entitled to go to the VA and determine what their eligibility is for benefits. And you get a disability rating. They do look at your characterization of service, how much time you put in, but things have really changed. And one of the big changes was, we really, as a country, and particularly as a government, we really mistreated our Vietnam era veterans. I mean, we absolutely disowned them. And many of those veterans received other than honorable or dishonorable discharges because of drug use during the Vietnam War, right? And we've recognized, I think, as a nation, and particularly the VA has recognized that, hey, they didn't just wake up one morning and decide to use a bunch of drugs. I mean, there may have been some things contributing to that decision, right? And it may have been part of their service. So the Veterans Administration has become much more forgiving of maybe, let's just say, poor decision making, okay? And so now veterans, as they're coming through, most of the veterans who come through, they'll say, okay, for this period of time, you had really good service, and then something happened. So maybe we can't, give you benefits for this one little bump, this one little period of your history, but for the rest of your service, hey, we owe you because you served. And I think that's the thing is, people think of the military as this big monolithic, like the Pentagon, right? It's this big monolithic organization. And there's actually 2 very separate entities. The Department of Defense, that's active duty, that's the guys who are still serving. That's a completely separate government agency than the Department of Veterans Affairs, right? And the Department of Defense, their mission is to go out and, do the country's bidding, and they need people to go do that. Sometimes they can be pretty draconian when it comes to behavior and punishments, and they're trying to maintain good order and discipline. So sometimes, they stick it to a service member pretty hard because they want to keep all the other service members from doing the same bad behavior. It's particularly true with drugs. The zero tolerance policy is a very, very real thing. VA doesn't have to do that. Their mission is to take care of veterans. So they can look at that and say, you know what? Yeah, you made a mistake, but man, one all crap should not, negate all these attaboys you got for 20 years of service. Again, that was certainly my story. So now the veteran can go to the Department of Veterans Affairs, get evaluated, and many times, regardless of the nature of discharge, get benefits. And one of those benefits is treatment for substance use disorder. And so a veteran goes to the VA, gets evaluated, they verify, yes, this really is a veteran. Yes, they really do have a problem. Yes, outpatient treatment is probably the appropriate level of care, and then they can get referred to us. And then their care is pretty much all funded by the VA. So it's a wonderful, wonderful benefit for the veteran because now all they have to worry about is focusing on their recovery.
And I think it's safe to say that probably 99% of the veterans are eligible for benefits. It's just they have to navigate the process. And, and I believe that there'll be people hearing this going, well, wait, I can get, treatment and it's paid for. So technically, I don't think we've ever seen a veteran that had to take a penny out of their pocket, even for a copay or deductible. So at the end of the day, Michael, to your question, in San Diego, we're the third largest veteran population, Jay, or is the second?
Second, I think.
Okay. Second largest veteran population in the country per capita. And the number we've heard is 375,000 veterans. And that's not active duty. We're talking veterans now. People have served on their time and no longer active duty. And half of them don't have insurance and they're completely eligible for it. So one of the things that we're trying to do is figure out how we can be a portal for that to make that happen, because a veteran who has served their country should not have to not get access to services that they need because they think they don't have insurance, or they don't believe they're eligible, or they don't know how to navigate the system. And I think, the choice program, which is what, I think Trump really pushed it hard, gave veterans opportunities to go see a different provider rather than in the network technically of the VA. And the reason for that was, and I don't want to badmouth the Veterans Administration, but over the years, veterans have complained in almost every region in the country. And I think San Diego has done a really good job of trying to focus on the veterans, because it's a big military town. I mean, and every service club has veterans, and, a third of the workforce, the first responders, are veterans. Even 40% of the homeless in San Diego have been veterans. So they're everywhere, and they deserve to get the kind of service, replacement or service opportunities for behavioral health, mental health, physical health, and overall health for themselves and hopefully their families as well. And, it's interesting, when you think about it, Jay, as you were talking about, your party time was when you went ashore, but, according to data around first responders, 25% of law enforcement, has some form of addiction that's going to erupt in the next year. So if that's true for active military, you factor in the PTSD that goes along with it, plus the stress of, what they have to do. And I can't even imagine, not a veteran, but I've heard enough stories, what they go through daily, weekly, monthly, and then the stress of potentially going into active, war zones at any moment. And for those, of course, that have been in them. So there's probably a lot more going on that we hear about in the news because they're out at sea. And, if they can't drink, but they want to stay high, I'm sure that they're bringing things aboard unless they're searching for, but some of those aircraft carriers, 5,000 people, they're like little cities, and there's not a little city in this country right now that doesn't have an issue with mood altering substances and people self-medicating. So it's a very precarious time, and there's no reason why veterans shouldn't get the attention that they need, because they have the resources. And our goal and our mission is to try to get that information to them. And our attitude is, if we can't help you, we'll find someone who can. So Jay, talk a little bit about, what you've learned in your journey since you've got in the provider business, and where you were, say, 3 years ago, about what you visioned you'd be doing and what you're actually doing now with what you've learned. What's different for you personally in the world of treatment and the world of helping other individuals, specifically veterans with substance use disorders?
Couple thoughts. One is that there's a ton of people working really hard, trying to do the right thing, not pulling in the same direction. So there's all kinds of government agencies, nonprofits, for-profits. There's all these people who are trying to do all these things, and they think that it's, the right answer, and it's not coordinated very well, which is a real shame. So I think unfortunately, there's a lot of I don't want to say wasted effort, but maybe misdirected effort. So in that regard, it's very disappointing. And it's particularly disappointing because it seems like some of the greatest misdirection is at the governmental level. So, Scott spoke about the VA. I think the VA has actually started to see the light and has made some tremendous changes. Now, maybe some of them were kicking and screaming, as a result of being, beaten. A number of directors of the Veterans Administration have been, relieved of their duties. So, it's been a painful process, but they seem to be on a better path in many ways. But some of the other models we're seeing around the country, they don't seem to be working very well. Some of these housing first models, you can look at San Francisco, look at some other places, they don't seem to be working very well. And science is still looking at it, and we're still studying it, but it's a little worrisome. So that part has been unfortunate. And I think there's a real problem with people who are seeking recovery not knowing where to go or what to do or how to get the right information. It's not a clear path. So that part is really, I think, where and I think Scott and I have talked about this a lot. That's where we're putting a huge focus of effort, is to try to raise that awareness and overcome stigma and make it more clear. This is how you get help. These are the things that seem to work. It's just disappointing that it just seems to be so hard to get that message out and get it to the right audience, right? The other thing that's really disappointing, and this is kind of more in the veteran space, is that follow the money. So there are a lot of places that have popped up that seem to be taking advantage of veterans. So some of these for-profit universities were popped up and were trying to take that GI Bill money from veterans and not really providing them with a quality of education. So now there's kind of a hesitancy among veterans and probably people seeking recovery too, that they're afraid that someone who's trying to help them might be trying to take advantage of them, trying to get their insurance benefits or things of that sort. That's really disappointing too. So again, trying to be honest brokers and trying to find other providers that are honest brokers is really important, I think, to get people the help they need. And I think the other piece that I've seen is that the game has changed, right? So the two things that really seem to be huge on the horizon, one is fentanyl. So now it's the death rate, the margin for error for people who are maybe experimenting with drugs for the first time or using drugs is zero, because with fentanyl you don't get a second chance. And the other thing is cannabis, right? We've normalized cannabis use and legalized it, and that has, I think, maybe made some people feel like it's not a danger, and the power of the specific types of cannabis, the level of THC it's not your grandfather's marijuana, right? This is really powerful stuff, and it's causing a lot of problems. We saw DUIs in the state of California nearly triple the year that cannabis became legal, and the legal system doesn't even really know what to do, because there's not a legal marijuana limit for DUI like there is for alcohol, right? So these are huge questions, and the military, active duty military, is really struggling with it because, and Scott, you mentioned people bringing stuff on the ships, synthetic stuff like spice. That was a huge deal, because a lot of sailors were saying, "Oh, well, spice is not on the prohibited list. I can use as much of this as I want." Wasn't even showing up in the drug test. That's the big deterrent that the military has, is constant urinalysis to try and catch people who are doing drugs. Well, spice wasn't even on the list. They weren't even testing for it. So that became a huge issue for the military. So I think what I'm learning is how complicated it is, and where we need to do the work to help people to get this message out and lower stigma, make a clear path, and then try and focus effort with all the different providers so that we're really trying to do something. I like analogies. And there's a Navy story that I keep very dear to my heart. Admiral Arleigh Burke, who is a major admiral in the history of the United States Navy, huge World War II hero, pretty salty guy. He was getting a briefing from a staff officer during World War II, and in the middle of the brief, the admiral says, "Hey, stop for a second. I got a question for you. Is this going to help me kill the enemy?" And the staff officer, God, not exactly. And the admiral said, "Then it's not important." And so a lot of times when I'm talking with other providers, if we get too deep into the weeds, sometimes I'll say, "Hey, wait a minute. Is this going to help somebody get sober?" And if the answer is no, well, then should we really be spending this much time on it? Let's focus on, what's really going to work. So I think that's what's really struck me over the past year is, where we need our focus of effort to be and trying to figure out how we can overcome this problem.
So Jay, tell us, in 30 seconds, and then I'm going to give you a second 30 seconds. If you were going to be talking to a veteran who really had no knowledge whatsoever, and the first time they're hearing from somebody who's been there and done that, what would you tell them? And the second part of that question, you could take 90 seconds if you need. Second part of that question is share a little bit about telehealth and how that might be an entree for people who are physically not close enough to a facility. Because one of the things we're working on is this statewide initiative to do telehealth, which is virtual like this, to help veterans who might sit in regions around the state, that are associated with the VA, but maybe that particular office doesn't offer an outpatient environment, and we can do it through telehealth, or we can do it virtually and remotely. And it's also another way to introduce the program to people who may be a little shy or want to maintain their anonymity. You can come on here and not show your face, not show your name. So the two parts, what would you tell a veteran? And then the second part, what is your excitement around telehealth?
I think for the veteran, number one thing is it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. There's hope. I know a guy, lots of guys. Come see, come with me. We're here for you. We understand. We really do, right? I'm a vet too. We'll help you navigate. We'll help you walk through this. You're not going to be alone. And Scott, you said it before. If we're not the right fit, we know someone who might be. One really good news story is that a lot of veteran service organizations are coming together. We're a member of the San Diego Veterans Coalition, and it's this coalition of all sorts of different providers that do all crazy sorts of things. I mean, they do pets, vets for tennis, Healing Waves Aquatics, art, all this stuff, right? So we can look at that veteran holistically. And so when the veteran comes in, hey, we've got the substance use disorder piece. We'll help you with that. But what else can we help you with? Oh, I have legal issues. Oh, we know Veterans Court. Oh, I got housing issues. We can help you talk to the VA about VASH housing. I've got, some PTSD. We can help you with that too. A lot of the things that we work with veterans on, the techniques that we're teaching them are applicable not only to their substance use disorder, but also to anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, all these things. Mindfulness, dialectical behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, even 12-step stuff. It's all applicable to helping veterans cope with living with life and cope with their past and cope with their fears of the future. So I think that's the message I would say, so that maybe they have some hope and maybe don't beat themselves up quite so hard. As far as telehealth, so telehealth, it's a big word. It kind of means different things to different people, but there are some people who are very hesitant about telehealth because they really like the face-to-face thing and they're worried about it. But the reality is that face-to-face is expensive and hard to do for a lot of folks. So we have some veterans who are Purple Heart veterans. We have veterans who have lost limbs in Afghanistan, Iraq. We have veterans who've suffered serious trauma. We have a lot of veterans with legal issues. They're not able to drive, or they can't afford to drive, right? So how do we help? And like Scott said, or they may just be in a more rural area where there's not a place that they can go. How do we help those veterans? We can't leave them out, right? So telehealth is a powerful model. So we have to kind of overcome maybe that technological fear or that fear that there's lack of intimacy. And so one of the things that we developed is a hybrid model. And I think that's a really important thing. Telehealth is a tool, but how you use it is really important. And the hybrid model is adding someone virtually to an in-person group. And I think that can be really powerful, because then that person who's attending virtually can feel more part of. They can see a group. They can realize, hey, I'm part of this. It's not just like we're doing, three, talking heads talking to each other. It's, hey, I see a room. I see people. I feel a part of this. And you're just welcoming them into this existing safe place. And I think that's a really powerful way of doing telehealth, so that it's not maybe so scary. And yeah, Scott, you're right. You could keep your camera off and just kind of listen in, fly on the wall at first. But what we've seen is that when we welcome people in, pretty soon they want to be part of. And that's a huge part of recovery. And that goes back to that first question. What do you tell the veteran? You can be part of. Come join with us. You're not alone. We've all been there. So
Very
maybe
good.
more than 90 seconds, but close.
Yeah, but very well said. And we invite people for absolutely free, my second favorite F word, if they want to come by the shop and see you and take a tour or meet some of the clinicians. If they want to come into a group, as long as the group agrees anonymously, they can observe. So there's no obligation until they're obligated, and they're only obligated once they understand the fear gets diminished, and we help them reduce the stigma, because we don't want to go to funerals anymore. And there's no reason that somebody shouldn't be able to access help today, whether it's in person or through virtual connectivity, or finding something out through navigating in your community with people who are passionate about helping you navigate. So with that, Michael, I'll throw it back to you if you have any last minute questions, and then Jay, you get the final word today.
Actually, I don't have any other questions because Jay already answered them for me. But I was wondering, we didn't really discuss this beforehand, if Jay may have a quote to see us out. Otherwise, maybe if he could just tell us an experience he had with a veteran that turned out really well that he's proud of.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things is to sit in our group and have a new veteran join us. And what I usually say is, okay, we're going to go around the new veteran. You are a guest of honor. You're what it's all about. We are so happy that you're here. You made it, because there's a whole world outside that never got in that front door. You made it. This is a celebration because you're here. So you sit here and we're going to just introduce ourselves. And I usually ask each of the different people to just say, what their name is, why they're here. And that's it. That's the only direction I get. And then we go around the room. And without any prompting, almost every time, if not every time, each veteran on their own accord welcomes the person and then tells them how much they like being there and how it's a safe place. They're in the right place. And they tell them something wonderful about recovery and I hate to say it, but us, what we're doing and how different it is, because it's not clinical. It's not, dry classroom, check the block, fill out the paperwork recovery. It's people who really care. And that, I think, is the recovery that really works. I think that's why 12-step programs have been so successful for so many years. It's because of the genuineness, the respect, the empathy, and the warmth. Right. And that's, I think, what we have. So to see that, a lot of times as a provider, I'm not doing anything. I'm just getting the heck out of the way. And I'm letting those other veterans help bring this new veteran along the road to recovery. It's a bumpy road, right? I mean, it's still, there's still going to be, relapses and things that aren't quite perfect, but it's just an amazing thing to watch. And I think if I had a message to other programs, it's look at that model, right? There's a lot of different things that we're doing out there that sound great. They're wonderful. Everyone's trying to do the latest and greatest new thing. But I'm telling you, if you can find that secret sauce, that'll make your program work. And for some reason, we managed to hit it. And I think it's because it's veterans helping veterans. I really do. So that if anything, that's kind of my parting shot.